What's up, AfterBuzzers? We are here for the season finale of Cults and Extreme Beliefs. We're going to be breaking down these conversations between the survivors, how they all had all these commonalities, yet they all had their own specificities as well. Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome back, AfterBuzzers. We're here, season finale, Survivors Talk, Part 2.
Yes.
And these survivors had lots to say, and we're going to be breaking that all down and more. I'm your host, Juliet Vibert. Thank you again for being here. I'm here with Olivia Taylor. How you doing, Taylor?
I'm doing good. It's crazy that this is the finale already.
I know. It flew by fast.
It really did.
It really did. And thank you guys so much for tuning in every episode. If this is actually the first episode you're watching, we encourage you to go back and watch episode 1, 2, and all the way up to here. We discussed a lot of different cults, and it's been great. It's definitely not, maybe great's not the appropriate word, but it's been important.
It's been enlightening.
Enlightening. Thank you, Taylor.
Yes.
Always there with the good words.
Of course.
So I have to ask you, we're on our season finale, and we were gathering the survivors for part 2 of a just conversation, just to know what are their commonalities, how they were separate, how they were all just individuals in a way, and their individual experiences. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts about this episode just as a standalone?
I think that my thoughts were kind of similar to what I said on the last Survivors Talk. It was nice to see them all get together. It was a nice thing to kind of tie together at the end there, but at the same time, I felt like if you've been a fan of the show since season 1, it felt a little bit repetitive, maybe a little bit unnecessary, just because a lot of it was information that we'd already heard, but it is always nice to get them in the same room. Like, I love seeing them interact, and I love having the cult expert kind of jump in with her different thoughts and like insights into what they had to say. So yeah, overall I think it's an interesting, but I think I prefer it when we focus on one at a time.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was interesting to see them all together, as you're saying, because it's nice to have them have that community and be there for each other. Compared to the part 1, I felt like there was a little less community. In part 1, they kept on reiterating the fact that they were going to be basically friends for life and always there for each other. And this wasn't really said here, so I hope that they have that support system for each other. But yeah, I mean, it was a great episode. And as you're saying, a little too much recap. If you've seen all the other episodes, I didn't learn that much more information. What we did learn is they talked a little bit about life after being in a cult, which was what I thought was the most enlightening, because that's the conversations that I've been missing. So we'll get to that later on in the episode. We're also going to talk about just like the different manipulation tactics that these cult leaders employed on them. You know, the control, how money came into play, just how family ties were completely broken, and how unfortunately like sexuality was always a big thing as well. And as I mentioned, life after cult, what does that actually look like? So a lot to cover here. Let's talk about this manipulation. As we've seen throughout the show, again, that's a big theme. That's kind of how a cult functions. They manipulate you with different ways. Were you surprised at how it seemed like throughout the show, it seemed that, you know, they all have their individualities, yet they seemed really, really common to me. Do you agree?
I definitely agree, and I thought it was interesting, especially like the family aspect that they talked about, because some of them, they have these huge families, so you think that that's like a huge part of it, but you kind of saw once they started talking about their experiences that something they really did have in common is they would kind of separate the families, and that wasn't really important in any of these cults, which was something that I wouldn't have guessed before I ever started the show. I wouldn't think that, like, it continues down the family line, like it's a really big, thing within the family you were born into, and so it was interesting to see that that's really not the case at all.
Yeah. What I thought was the most interesting to me is that there were certain cults, they really go and they kind of just seek new members, but some other cults are different, and they were saying it's really hard to be part of the cult, and it's like down the family, and I thought that was really interesting, because I would think that as a cult, you always want to be recruiting new members. So I thought that was very, very interesting. That no, not in this case.
I agree. I feel like it's very extreme either way. Either you have a bunch of the propaganda and you're using a bunch of these marketing tools, or it's completely isolated and no one is getting in no matter what they do. I feel like it's really one or the other. Like, there's no middle ground in that kind of respect.
Right. It's so strange. And again, it was great just seeing them together. We had Lamont, who was a part of the Warren Jeffs cult. Warren Jeff is now serving a life sentence. And he talked a little bit about how relationships were just even tough because you weren't able to get married with whomever you wanted. You weren't able to consummate, your relationship with whomever you wanted. It was very strict and very controlled. And now that he's serving life in jail, it's the question was brought up, what are all the believers doing now? Because he doesn't have a successor. And so how long can that really stay? Are you going to go visit him and ask him if you can get permission to marry someone? I thought that was a very interesting question that they posed,
Yeah, I think they're in a really unique situation because I don't think it's often that the cult survives after their leader, and he's not dead. He's still alive and in jail, so it puts them in a really kind of tricky spot in that kind of respect. So I think they're in a really kind of position that we haven't seen before a lot in history.
Yeah, and this is a big commonality that he had with the Sanctuary Church and Teddy. Teddy was saying the same thing, is that you cannot be having sex with whomever you want, and you have to be chosen, a partner has to be chosen for you. And it's funny because as they're growing up, this idea of this will happen to you and it's going to be a great celebration and it's going to be so exciting. And now as adults, as they're a little bit further removed, they're saying, no, it was kind of almost at random, they look cute, okay, fast decisions that are super important decisions. And were you surprised at how, can I dare say, not much thought is put into these relationships?
I thought that was shocking, but what I thought that was even more shocking was when Teddy was talking about how he still kind of has that feeling inside of him where he's like, maybe I would have been happy if, I would have been paired up with someone. And it makes sense when you think about it because, if that was a part of your life for so long, for literally decades, of course you're going to still have that. But I think he's in an interesting position because it's he has this objective viewpoint of it of, oh, that was just random. It doesn't matter. But at the same time, he's still, the scars run so deep for him that part of him just has that inkling, even if he knows it's not really a rational thing to think.
Yeah, I think that was very important to be brought up, a very important topic, because they're so ingrained and that's all they've known. And one of, they've been manipulated, they've been taught to believe a certain way. It's within their family. So it's hard to think of a life outside of that. And I think that's why they're always torn, because as you're saying, I've known this my whole life, but now I have this new sense of freedom. Yeah. And that's something they explored even more, this idea of freedom, is that you haven't had it your whole life. You thought you did, but you didn't. And now that you're given freedom, it's actually, you're left with a hole within you. They were all comparing the fact that you have this hole that sometimes will never be filled. And a lot of people turn to drugs, and a lot of suicides come of that, which I thought was just so heartbreaking. But are you shocked that, once you leave a cult, it's not all rainbows and sunshine?
I'm not shocked by that, because on a smaller, obviously less extreme scale, you can compare this to when kids go off to college. If they've had really strict families and, had really strict curfews and couldn't do this, couldn't do that, sometimes when they go to college, they are, the ones that are partying a lot or slacking off a lot. So,
and over drinking, yeah, as you're saying.
Exactly. It makes sense. It's just this whole idea of freedom, and I think it's a theme that carries to, more than just the cult, but you can just see it so kind of profoundly and so in such an extreme in these circumstances.
Yeah, and I think but there's another side too, with this fact of them, trying to have a new life. And we talked about it a little bit, especially with Amy, when she left the cult. And there's actually a lot of things she didn't know how to use, a lot of appliances, a lot of things that you just have to learn from scratch. And I think that takes a lot of, you have to, a certain kind of person to be able to do that, right?
Definitely. And I loved the fact that Annika and Ron, the people that she kind of stayed with, kind of highlighted the fact that she was excited to learn about this. She wasn't meek or scared. She was really excited to jump in with both feet. And I think that just says a lot about her character, that she was so brave and so courageous and always looked at it on this sort of positive, bright side, because I feel like that's definitely harder than it probably looks, harder than you'd think, coming from a position of never having to have experienced that.
Yeah, I agree. That was my favorite part of the whole episode as well. It's just this idea that, and everybody take this in stride. we always are guilty of complaining, but yet she has crazy circumstances. She leaves the cult. She has 2 children. She has to start from zero, has very few life skills. She has $0. Again, 2 children, that's a lot of responsibility who she wants to take care of. And she keeps a smile on her face and she's excited to learn and isn't seeing it as this crazy task. She's like, no, this is exciting. I thought that was so sweet. I'm like, you know what? I really like this. And I like that we have shows like this that are able to get this message across, because I think they're important conversations and it's important to hear this. Another thing that's actually really important for our lovely audience is to subscribe on YouTube. Subscribing on YouTube really, really helps our network. And you know what? It actually helps you too, because if you subscribe on YouTube, what happens is that kind of you get content that's curated to you. So if you love reality, which is the channel we're on, go on AfterBuzz reality channel and subscribe to that, and then all our reality shows that we cover, you'll see them in your feed on YouTube, and it becomes in a way kind of like a Netflix, and you get it catered to you, which is really cool, and it really helps us a lot. We're the ESPN of TV Talk, and we really want to keep things going. So please do make sure to subscribe. It helps us, it helps you, and if you do, we'll shout you out on air, and we'll make sure to thank you personally.
For sure.
So yeah, thank you.
And just to jump in, if you're gonna miss the sort of cult content, we're both on a show called Sacred Lies, actually on Facebook Watch, and so we actually did kind of touch on the fact of like going outside of the cult and having to learn those life skills, because one of the main characters in that show is kind of dealing with the same thing in a sort of fictional context. So we were even talking about a few weeks back before we even knew we were doing that, like, oh, I wish we had a fictional account of like someone like this, and so now we do. If you guys are just as excited about that idea as we are.
Yeah, it's a great show. I really urge you guys to watch. And television, again, it's such a powerful tool. It allows us to open this dialogue up. It allows us to just to learn from each other, and not only just be entertaining, it can be a lot deeper. And actually this idea came about in the show today with the survivors, because Teddy was saying that once he left the cult, he didn't really know how to act in a lot of situations. He didn't know how to be social. He didn't know how to reach out to people and connect with people. So he would watch TV and mimic what he saw on TV. And I thought that was so crazy.
I did too, but that makes sense. Like, even if I know people trying to learn a new language will like watch TV and sort of learn it through that way and kind of mimic the situations there, and you're so right, and that's why I think it's so cool that A&E decided to do this show and kind of keep in the same realm as like the Scientology and the Aftermath too. And I think it's cool that they decided to kind of expand upon that and reach out to more people and give more people a voice.
Yeah, I agree. But for a second I was thinking, I'm like, I wish I had named some shows, because as much as there's great quality TV, there's also TV that's main purpose is just to entertain, and it's not necessarily super high brow or very intellectual. So can you imagine Teddy walking around and just like imitating, I don't know, like Family Guy and thinking that's appropriate?
Oh my gosh, honestly. He seems smart though. I feel like he can differentiate.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, again, like it shows so much. These people, the fact that they're able to live in these circumstances and like completely uproot their lives, like it shows immense character. And that's something that they talked about as well, is that going on this show, telling their story, being so vulnerable, they've become activists in a way, right? They're activists in terms of they're the voice of a new life after cults, and that life can be better and does not have to be this way. And I thought that was such a sweet sentiment and such a great note to end the episode on.
I agree, and I liked the different reasons they all kind of chimed in with about why they decided to participate in the series. Some people said that they hope that some of the people that are still in the cult see it and know that there's hope and know there's light after it. Some people talked about kind of the stereotypes that people have and, think, oh, I could never, get roped into this. All these people are just, dumb and God was coming to them or whatever. So I liked the kind of numerous opinions they had and numerous reasons behind why they decided to be on it.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because I was thinking that too. I like how they flipped the conversation around, saying that, cults are obviously have their difficulties, but leaving a cult and entering society is very, very judgmental, right? And we need to learn to not be that judgmental. And kind of, as they were saying, that they didn't really want to share with everyone their past. And it takes a while for them to open up, because, as you're saying, people were like, well, how are you able to be manipulated in so many ways, both, sexually, with like just money, and give so much away? but it's not our place to judge because you don't know it until you live it type situation.
Definitely agree. It's sad that they feel like they can't kind of open up about that with some other people. I feel like they're very guarded in some respects, and I hope I liked I forget who exactly said it, but I think it might have been Teddy, but he said that he wants to make it part of the common national conversation.
Right.
And I think that's so true. Like, it's all about kind of normalizing these discussions.
Yeah, agreed. And please, you guys, like, you have been great all season long, just commenting in our YouTube and both our iTunes. And please let us know, like, what was your favorite episode? Which was the one that really taught you the most? And what are some of the lessons you're carrying home with you? Again, mine is definitely the one with Amy. And just no matter what life throws your way, just be enthusiastic about learning. Mm-hmm. And don't see this as a tedious task. See it as an exciting one, even though you've been knocked down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I love that message.
I do too. Is there anything you would like to discuss a little bit more before we head into our news segment?
The only thing I want to discuss that I found really, really interesting was something I hadn't noticed until they kind of pointed out on this discussion, which is the hypocrisy of all the leaders.
Right.
And how they all were really hypocritical in their different ways. Like the Unification Church, he would gamble a lot and go to Vegas and gamble with their money. And I know a big part of that was like giving up your possessions and like giving money to the church. So obviously that was super hypocritical. For Children of God, he was having sex with all of these women, but none of the other people around him were allowed to. And with
the alcohol too, right?
The alcohol too, yes.
No one's allowed to. It's like forbidden to drink, but he's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So much stuff.
Definitely. And the Warren Jeffs one, he would like control all of their appearance, and of course he didn't have to like wear the same color clothes or do his hair in the same way. And another one with that I found really, really interesting and really, really dark was the fact that he would make all of the like similarly aged men around him marry like child brides, so that if any of them decide to turn on him, he would have that as blackmail. So it's like the kind of mentality of, if I'm going down, you're going down with me, which I thought was just crazy. And obviously that's just such a sick but like sort of brilliant thing to like kind of premeditate that
and
evidence.
And we saw this with NXIVM as well, right? They would make people write these awful letters, denounce, just saying all the bad things that they've done and like lies about their families, and just so that they had that leverage over them. Again, this idea of manipulation we've seen throughout each episode is just so predominant. So, but again, I thought these are important conversations. Not as you go back and watch our after shows, not every show Taylor and I are like, this was great. We were just kind of trying to like, okay, we have to do an after show. We have to talk about it, even though it sticks with you and it kind of gets under your skin. It's important. And again, that's why messages like just the way Amy lives her life with that positivity of learning, this idea that they're all taking a huge risk to have these conversations and that they become these activists. And I really hope that a lot of people somehow see this show that are maybe in cults and get out of cults. People who do not know about cults and are judgmental open their minds up and maybe lend out a reaching hand and just say, you know what, I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna teach you the ways. It's gonna be okay. But yeah, I think that wraps up our breakdown of the show. Let's head into our news update segment.
AfterBuzz TV News.
All right, so this kind of doubles as the special segment, I think, this week, because there's a couple stories I actually found about NXIVM, because I know we're both really, really kind of interested in that. I feel like it's a very fresh one, kind of on everyone's mind.
It's so fresh. It has that Hollywood aspect where there's so many people, actresses involved in it. And apart from in terms of what's in the news, we have Warren Jeffs, but that's kind of locked. He's just for life, and there's no real update. This has just happened, so that's why it's so intriguing. But tell us, what we got?
For sure. So there's a new show called Burden of Truth. It's a Canadian show that just started airing on the CW, and the main actress in that, Kristen Kriuk, I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
From Somerville, right?
Kristen. Maybe. Yeah. I think that she's been in quite a few other things before this. But she was actually in NXIVM for a while, and she isn't really talking about it in any of her interviews. I think that's kind of something that she wants to sort of push away and distance herself from. But she actually did release a statement saying that she was embarrassed of her association. She was apparently 23 when she got sucked into it, which is a very obviously pretty vulnerable age, especially when you are kind of working on the platform of self-empowerment and improvement and things like that. But yeah, that was a story that ran on the Daily Beast. So if you guys want to read the whole thing about that.
Yeah, so I'm right. She was actually one of the main characters on Somerville, and so
Okay.
that's probably how she got lured in, because her co-star was on Somerville, and she was Smallville. Sorry,
Yeah.
Smallville. So that's probably how that happened again. And the big idea with NXIVM was to recruit people, especially women. So they're doing a show together, and it's like, I'm part of this great self-help organization. Come with us. And actually, that's not at all what's going on.
For sure.
Very interesting news. What else you got?
Yeah, well, just to follow up on that, though, she did make it really clear that she left like 5 years ago, and she was not in the inner circle. She wasn't any of the people who had like a real connection to the leader of that or anything. She just wanted to kind of make that clear after the whole Allison Mack thing, I think, because she was so closely involved. The other thing having to do with NXIVM, there's a story on Pathos, this is a crazy story, so I would definitely urge you to look up the details and read the whole story. But a girl named Lauren Salzman either gave an interview or they found her records where she actually locked one of the cult victims in a room for 2 years.
Wow.
Because she was accused of developing feelings for someone other than their cult leader. And they kind of used the fact that either she was, I think, an illegal immigrant from Mexico, or she didn't have her papers with her or something of that nature. And they threatened to deport her back to Mexico if she wouldn't kind of stay in this room. And so she finally got tired of it, decided to leave the room, and they sent her back to Mexico and kind of cut her off from her family. And it took a long time for her to kind of reunite with them and kind of get back on her feet, which I thought was just insane. Like 2 years in one room.
That's crazy.
That's just crazy. But yeah,
That's awful.
Pathos, I think, is the name of the website that was on if you want to read more about that. So yeah, a lot of developments on NXIVM recently.
Wow, crazy. I can't, wait to figure out what goes on there.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep watching it because there's things are just spiraling, I feel like.
Yeah. Crazy. I can't believe this is our finale, though. I really enjoyed this.
Me
again.
too. I
think
hope
it
there's
was
a
great.
season 2.
I hope so. There is, because it's a conversation that needs to keep happening, and I feel like there's always something to say, and it's unfortunate that there is, but we need to be having these conversations until there isn't. So as Taylor said, we're actually doing a fiction cult show on Facebook. It's a Facebook watch show called Sacred Lies. So make sure to go check that out. But in the meantime, you also can follow me on Instagram at Juliet Vibert. Actually, just kidding. My Instagram handle is at Bonjour Juliet. That was my name. But you'll find me both if you look that up. What about you, Taylor?
My name is Taylor Gates, and you guys can find me on Twitter at alphabet_and, on Instagram at Taylor_Gates_. I also do the Younger After Show every Wednesday at 10, and Law & Order SVU every Thursday at 8.
Very exciting. Well, bye, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.